I come from Istanbul, you know. Istanbul is an intercontinental border town in Europe and Asia. I have been living in the territory for 17 years, and I can say that Turkey is a nation rich in history, and above all, a territory of encounter of peoples and cultures for several millennia. For our sharing today, it is useful to point out that the Turkish people are not an Arabic culture. But since the arrival of these people to the territory of the Byzantine kingdoms, they have assumed Islam as their own religions. There is currently talk of 99% of the Turkish Muslim population. And we friar minors, who are neither Byzantines nor Turkish, why are we in Turkey? Me, I am Mexican. To this question, I propose to respond and offer you my coexistence with the Turkish people, the majority of whom are of Islamic religion. The Franciscan presence in the majority Muslim countries is not a traditional mission. The attention of Christians living in these countries is not excluded, but our presence is not limited to Christians alone, nor is it a proselytizing attempt to convert Muslims to Christianity. No. It is a matter of remaining faithful and encouraging the special charisma that our founder, Brother Francis of Assisi, received as an integral part of his faith, and which he cultivated with passion through the vision of an universal fraternity as the vocation of all humanity. If for a believing God is the creator of everything that exists, and we recognize him as the Father of all, then every human being of all times and of all the extension of the earth is considered, recognized, and accepted as a brother and sisters. Since my faith, I recognize all the human beings, brothers and sisters. Historians and experts in Franciscan spirituality deepen and discover the historical, human, and theological characteristics in which that initial meeting of the Christian who goes to the head of the Muslim people in Egypt happened, Malik al-Kamil, as we know, in September 1219 in Damietta, one of the cities of the mouth of the Nile in the Mediterranean Sea. At the time of the Fifth Crusade, Friar Francis and the Fray Illuminato, embarked to the Middle East. The goal of this trip was the holy city of Jerusalem, which had been conquered and occupied by Muslims since the time of Saladino, as we heard before. The Crusaders, following the human logic of conquest, go there as an army and declare war on Muslims to free the land of Jesus Christ. Francis, from his part, announcer of peace and reconciliations, acts differently. He doesn't want confrontation, not even war. He wants encounter, dialogue, and sharing the life. 800 years have passed, and we have already heard some historical references, and above of all, the spiritual legacy we have received as Franciscans, and the serious desire and profound conviction of the contribution we can offer to the Church and to the world through the human and spiritual values of universal brotherhood and how operators of faith and reconciliation. Therefore, my contribution today is to inform about the initiatives that the Friar Minors Franciscans in the world have promoted in the last 40 years. These last 40 years for us are a strong impulse, a strong initiatives. More specifically, I would like to reflect with you and share my 17-year experience in Turkey and the last 3 years as Apostolic Vicar in Istanbul. The opening that the Roman Catholic Church has promoted and encouraged since the Second Vatican Council has created and indicated a way of life in contact with all humanity. We heard already what means the Nostra Aetate, the document, inaugurated an approach to all believers and all religions. In this ecclesial perspective of approaching the believers of the different religions of the world, the Franciscans, together with other movements and new initiatives, have renewed our commitment to go and live inter Saracenos, that is, among Muslims. We can indicate 3 important moments of renewal of the last 40 years. The first one is the celebration of the 7th century of the birth of St. Francis. In 1982, on that occasion, the Minister General, John Bon, summoned a group of friar minors, representatives of the countries where the friars lived and worked among the Muslims. In addition to sharing the different experience from the Maghreb, North Africa, Middle East, Palestine, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, up to this region of Deep Asia, Indonesia, Philippines, and then Singapore also. The meeting resulted in the creation of the first commission to promote Islamic-Christian dialogue, which for 15 years awareness of the precious gift of universal brotherhood, and therefore of constant openness in mind and heart, proper to the Franciscan charisma in the Catholic Church. Meanwhile, Pope John Paul II, trying to put the principles of the Second Vatican Council into practice, called a meeting of all the heads of the world religions on October 27th in 1986 in Assisi, exactly in the city of birth of St. Francis of Assisi. This meeting was for us, Franciscans, the confirmation of the right path that our order had promoted. At the same time, this meeting opened our eyes to widen our views and not to remain closed in the present inactivity of our journey, but to insert ourselves into the Church's journey and continue to grow in our relations with the brothers of Islam we had found in the street towards God. One renovation of that commission in the second time was made, including ecumenical relations, in approaching to the Orthodox churches and to the churches of the Reformation. We also wanted to be open the church for incultural religious dialogue, but the times were not yet right for us. This change has made us lose strength in the promotion of the Islamic-Christian dialogue. A little has been advanced in the ecumenical part. Intercultural dialogue still awaits better times. But I want to speak about our project in Istanbul. We have already talked about the fundamental reason for the Franciscan presence of the friar minors in Muslim countries, but now we wonder why Istanbul. We could go to Morocco or Egypt, where the presence of the friar is greater in number. The previous Minister General, Herman Chaluk, realized in his visit in April 1995 the wonderful possibility that Istanbul offered, presence of the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate of Constantinople. Therefore, the new fraternity could develop ecumenical dialogue with the Orthodox churches of the Oriental rites. For the relationship with Islam, Turkey, you know, is a republic of lay constitution, and is also the Catholic Church present. Obviously, bilateral relations with the nation of our origin are very important, but we are normally accepted to perform our service. It is worth remembering that the first development of Christian took place in Minor Asia, the current territory of Turkey. So the Christian presence was 6 centuries before the arrival of Islam in the territory of Turkey, the actual Turkey. Therefore, in Turkey, Islam and Christianity have lived together for 14 centuries, always together. This coexistence with the times of peace and other in war also somehow favors the understanding of the diversity of the two religions. Turkey, friendly and welcoming people. I know that all Eastern people and cultures have a special sensitivity for hospitality. Me, as Mexican, this cordiality and spontaneity for human coexistence I appreciated from the first moment. But the most significant thing for me is to have learned that the encounter between the different religions, and clearly between Christianity and Islam, does not begin with doctrine, we heard also before, nor with theology, much less with rivalry or with the ambition of proselytism, but with the friendship and the invitation a drink, a tea, a chai, together. This fact is not marginal or superficial. The knowledge of one's own reality and cultural identity is at the basis of peaceful coexistence and the friendly and trusting sharing of human values and religious principles. The fact that we can all enter places of worship enriches mutual knowledge. We can enter normally in the mosque, and the Muslim people come to us in the churches. We have a common way and purpose, pilgrims, because Christians and Muslims, we are seekers of the one true God. Who seeks, finds. This teaching of Jesus Christ is the rule of the search for interreligious and Islamic Christian dialogue, visiting the mosques, the cultural centers of Islam, and the universities. We have found always through friendship and the chai that never fails, capable and willing people to share common subjects of the two religions. Common subjects as prayer, peace, ecology. Then there are others that are more focused in everyday life: the transmission of the faith, the reception of foreigners, migrants, and refugees, social assistance for the poorest. For a believer, the experience that expresses faith and testifies to his hope is prayer. I personally consider that the sharing of prayer is the culmination of the encounter between our religions. It is not a question of mixing Muslim prayer with Christian prayer, but of knowing the prayer of the other and accompanying the other while they pray, and letting ourselves be accompanied by others. Since 2005, in Istanbul, on October 27, in the day called In the Spirit of Assisi, in a church we gathered together with some Catholic faithful with a Muslim community of Sufi spirituality. We make prayer and songs, and they play a part of the Sema, the ritual dance of the dancing dervishes. We conclude with a song of peace and a song to Mary. Our Sufi Muslim friends have learned already our traditional song to Mary that we sing in Latin, the Salve Regina. They sing with us in Latin also. Yeah. In these 3 years and 3 months as Episcopal Vicar of Istanbul, the meetings and days of sharing in which I participate as coordinator and responsible of the Franciscan fraternity before, now we can continue. And now for me, as a bishop, my official investiture is considered a matter of honor, and this gives me the opportunity to get closer to the imams and muftis. I am a frequent contact with the Dede, is the name given to the head of the Sufi community. An important fact is that I can now propose the other initiative, invite our friends, brothers and sisters Muslim to a dinner during the month of Ramadan. Let them know that we Christians accompany them with prayer during this month. They also invite us to a lunch during Christmas time, or they come to the Episcopal house to offer greetings for the New Year in other moments. This is an exchange continually in the year. So far, I have talked about the beautiful friendship with Muslim friends in Turkey, but certainly there are also challenges to face. I note 4 of the biggest challenges. A Christian priest, especially of the Catholic Church, is considered by most radical Muslims to be a missionary who wants to convert Muslims. They think like that. We know that in the past, some European priests had this tendency, but this was not the job for which they were sent. Now, none of my 34 priests in our Apostolic Vicariate of Istanbul do proselytizing work. The word missionary, which means sent, we do not use to avoid misunderstandings. Also, the word dialogue, some of them interpret it as a hidden proselytism. Our today's meeting is called encounter, yeah, not dialogue. Yes, this is the term that mostly certainly describes the search for bringing believers closer to the God of Abraham, the common father of our faith. Also, it's not a secret that Islam has an official, political, and regulatory dimension for its people. We Christians no longer have this relationship of religion with politicals and power. We know that history teaches us that the spiritual dimension does not go well with the human interest of domination. This does not mean that we don't want to live with Muslims where this happens, but for us, coexistence in these countries becomes more difficult and sometimes dangerous. Mutual prejudices also. The bad knowledge of culture and religion of the other is a challenge to be constantly overcome. In Turkey, when we want to speak of the Catholic Church, they remember the Crusades, and we are also considered modern Crusades. Instead of in Europe and in some countries in America continent, which do not know the Muslim countries, when I say that I live among the Muslims, they don't understand why I am still alive. Yeah. Because they tell me that they are, we are among the terrorists. Yeah. This prejudice is mutual, not only the Christian, also in the Muslim countries. And this is a strong challenge, but our presence and our friendship breaks this misunderstanding and mutual prejudice. In conclusion, I propose also, we receive also a methodology for developing this relationship, Muslim-Christian encounters. If we are seekers of God, we should also be broader researchers, regardless of race, cultural, sexual orientation, diversity of religion. In my experience and listening to the experiences of others, I allow myself to propose a way to create the meeting of our religions that will lead us to a constant and secure fraternal and peaceful coexistence. My methodological proposal has 4 steps to follow, combining them according to the opportunities. The first one is the interest in the knowledge of the other that is different to me. Knowing the other in his culture and in his faith, and letting himself be known. This requires an openness of mind and heart, in the awareness that we are all children of the same God and Father. If I call as Christian God my Father, all the human beings, the humanity, all are brothers and sisters. This is my faith. So this interest for knowing the other in the own identity is the first step. Second one, mutual knowledge leads to mutual respect. Respect for the other is a fundamental human value for human coexistence. But if I don't know the other, enough, I will struggle to respect it. The human tendency is one of arrogance, of feeling stronger and better than the other. Instead, if I discover in the other the values, the faith, and the hope that I carry in my blood, I will be happy to walk together with the other, respecting his diversity. So this second step is the knowledge mutual. Know the others and let me know to the others. The third one, this respect for others leads to recognize and respect mutual cultural and religious values. In mutual knowledge, we will realize that all human beings guide their lives and their cultures of belonging with similar values and principles. On the other hand, we must recognize, and this is more difficult, we must recognize that other cultures and religions differ from mine, cultivate and practice their values more intensely and with greater conviction than I do. Sometimes we discover the same values, but I have to recognize that the other lived better as I do. Before it said about the prayer. The prayer in the Islam people, in the Muslim faithful, the 5 moments in the every day. We sometimes more, sometimes less. Yeah, it has to recognize. So if I am honest with myself, the closeness of the other will lead me to appreciate everything that is good in the other, and also the other will do it more spontaneously in my regard. Fourth, and I finish here, sharing of common values. If we recognize that the Spirit precedes us in the other, we can also propose a sharing of common values, despite having different traditions, forms, and understanding of our faith. This sharing is the final, I guess, I can say like that, in these processes. But the 4 steps sometimes are together, and it has to take the opportunity for living the common point as we can do. It has to be there always. And I thank you, your attention, and pray for me. Thank you.